Hi, my name is Steve Lightfoot. Regarding what you may or may not have read or heard about me, I assure you that it is almost all jealous hogwash. The government has their army of character assassins that want to scare you off from my findings by mischaracterizing and marginalizing me with untruths and slanted opinions. I'm a 100% pure American hero who discovered the hard evidence in John Lennon's murder and is brave enough to go public with everything until the world knows. And Stephen King is jailed for murder. Steve Lightfoot is an American conspiracy theorist, most notable for the van he's been driving across the United States for the last 4 decades. The van has gone under numerous design changes throughout the years, but has kept its core message the same. Stephen King shot John Lennon.
An unspeakable tragedy confirmed to us by ABC News in New York City. John Lennon, outside of his apartment building on the west side of New York City, the most famous perhaps of all of the Beatles, shot twice in the back, rushed to Roosevelt Hospital, dead on arrival. Hard to go back to the game after that news flash.
John Lennon was actually shot by Mark Eric Chapman, a schizophrenic man who believed that John Lennon's claim that the Beatles were more popular than Jesus was so irredeemably offensive that he deserved 5 shots in the back for it. Chapman was arrested at a bench near the scene of the crime, reading The Catcher in the Rye, a book he would claim was his manifesto. At the time, Chapman took a very striking resemblance to then obscure author Stephen King. But in the world of Steve Lightfoot, nothing's a coincidence. And through a bout of schizophrenia-fueled mental gymnastics, concluded that Chapman must have been an innocent bystander, planted on that park bench by the evil Stephen King, so that he could kill John Lennon and shift the blame. Steve Lightfoot was born in a small town in Montana in 1954, but moved to Edinburgh, California when he was very young. Steve described his childhood life as, "I think my life was relatively normal. Of course, it was not. I was completely normal till my academic prowess caught the attention of my mentors, who let me know I was special. I was lecturing 8th graders as a 2nd grader about dinosaurs. I was even offered a speaker's platform, though I seemed like the only kid who didn't know how to read my first day of 1st grade. I was books ahead of the class in no time. I was absolutely the best artist in the whole school, hiding my work with my hands to avoid the gawks of other classmates. As a junior in high school, Dick Nixon, that's right, my geometry teacher, told us the first day of class, no one has ever trisected an angle with just a compass and a straight edge. I thought, how hard could that be? After a few weeks later, after learning how to do the same with a line segment, I tried the same principles on a... When I made a trip to his house one night, he was stunned to see my method worked on all angles, obtuse and acute, and told me I'd be famous if I could write out why it works. I thought it was too much of a bother over something so ridiculously obvious and easy in the first place. I had more exciting projects to do than any other math-related jibber-jatter. In 1976, I recall Paul Harvey, the late radio announcer, telling the world about someone solving the same thing just how I did 6 years earlier, and knew I must be a genius. In fact, by then my IQ scores ranged from 120 in grade school to 165, my last one in college. By the way, I beat Einstein and Newton in that one area of math, and I did it in 10 minutes. First try. When they all tried to do it and failed. I'll take this opportunity to include at the age of 8, I knew the public's conformity of working a 40-hour work week was in itself a form of mass insanity. It was my very first independent thought that made me wonder about all of you. Are all of you insane? No wonder I was so into the Native American way of life in 3rd grade. Modernity pales in comparison to the way humans lived for tens of thousands of years. Money has enslaved and blinded all of you. On July 26, 1982, a year and a half after the murder and just weeks after seeing the tiny blurred clipping about Chapman's closed-door guilty plea, I decided to reread the murder report to see how Chapman skipped trial. I first read an Us magazine article and learned that Nixon tried to illegally deport John in the early 70s because of his high political profile and pronouncements against the Vietnam War, and Nixon himself. John invented the term tricky dick, in fact. It was then that Steve began to make connections between Lennon's murder and supposed secret codes he found in magazine headlines. I also noticed that most of the bold print headlines read like code about John's assassination. All the president's magazines. Unholy ministry. A gambler's luck runs out. Who's in, who's out. It was the ominous headline, who's in, who's out, above just elected Ronald Reagan that made my heart sink. After all, Reagan was in, and Lennon was out. 2 days later, I went to the larger San Diego library and found the motherlode of bold print codes, and even told my girlfriend at the time that my life was in danger and I'd have to move back to Santa Rosa, near where I was raised, to be safer. I first went to a priest who advised me to use an alias and rubber gloves. For a while, I hitchhiked to Santa Rosa and began photocopying my findings and distributing them to the media using an alias and hiding behind sunglasses. A few months after I pieced together all the codes and evidence, Terry Kodash of the San Francisco Secret Service surprised me with a visit while I was at Santa Rosa Library. He took some photographs of me and warned me I could be arrested for any threats I might make towards these politicians, and had me offer some handwriting samples and left. I realized the next day that those samples might be used to forge a suicide note someday. I called him back and complained empathetically. I saw him years later out of disguise, without his blonde wig and blue contacts, with his real brown hair and eyes outside the federal building. As the messenger of this, the biggest news story in 2,000 years, I have a unique perspective that must escape probably all of you so-called normal citizens. I actually do know things that nobody else knows about this world. In a nutshell, I'd say that the heroes of the world, the Jesuses, the John Lennons, the Steve Lightfoots, are the single most important valuable thing any human race can have. You cannot move on without the hero, and the government kills that hero every time. So afraid of the heroes our government is that they're not just satisfied with killing them in cold blood, but now they feel the need to make sure a nightmare of evil is fostered on you, the stupid, silent, apathetic public, by arranging for Stephen King, the opposite messenger of Lennon, to kill Lennon, and then take over the culture.
To put their hands on the arc of history and bend it once more toward the hope of a better day.
Barack Obama, the great deceiver, I have come to learn is absolutely trying to kill me, after first setting the stage with a host of phony traffic tickets, to explain away why I was killed in a head-on accident with a large truck someday in the future. George Bush did the same thing, minus the pre-ticketing, in 2007, when I was almost killed when a woman ran a red light at almost 60 miles per hour. I helped get Obama elected, and I halfway trusted him. Until I learned that even the courtroom antics include overt conspiracy and meddling, as evidence in my recent visit to the Oakland, California court, where the commissioner showed up an hour late, presumably to get a briefing on how to convict me first. He gave me a 1-minute stare down before the proceeding began. An hour later, I was called to the stand. First, I made a motion to dismiss because I was deprived of a speedy trial because of the officer's 5-month delay to enter my ticket into the system, requiring me now to drive 500 miles each way from San Diego to my new residence. He denied my motion, saying that he had up to a year to present the ticket. March 23rd, 2016. Oh, Miley Cyrus. Of course, coming out denouncing Donald Trump.
We need to build a wall.
And let me just guess, supporting Hillary Clinton. Somebody please get Miley Cyrus to read this entry, if she hasn't already noticed my website emblazed van, rolling around her hometown of Calabasas, California. Miley, I love you. And you remind me of a girl I once knew. In fact, she looked a lot like you. In fact, she had your fire and spirit. This woman, who was 19 at the time, when I was 23, would absolutely profoundly change my life. I absolutely admire that you're proactive politically, and I believe that you think you're right. I believe that you're wrong about both Trump and Clinton, and as much as I'd like to rub noses with you otherwise, please allow me to explain why. 1. Hillary Clinton is more likely to assassinate you, or do unto you after what George Bush did to the Dixie Chicks after they spoke out against him and crashed their career. Hillary and Bill Clinton are in bed with the Bush family and their boss, the Rockefellers. The powers that be, the establishment, use a tag team of Republicans and Democrats alike to fool all of us. They're on the same side. Just the side that Hillary is on kills people like you. Miley, she's a con woman. And speaking of women, I think your woman power ideas is why you like Hillary, and that you'd like to be president someday. I hope you would like to be president someday. I really do like you. I also know that you're as naive as candy about what you're walking into. Let me save you the embarrassment of hitching yourself to a con woman like Clinton. Let me take you to school on this. As for Donald, he's a better man than we, the Lennon killing public, deserve. In fact, he's the real deal as far as I can see, and I'm not crazy. If Donald Trump chooses you to be his vice president one day, I wouldn't be surprised. And remember, I'm on the side of Donald Trump. He's that cool. Heads up, girl. I love you. Stephen King's hometown of Bangor, Maine feels sorry for him and wants to protect him. I was there several times for many months at a time, and they never challenged my claim. I remember how thick the tension was in a Denny's diner in Portland, Maine, when the whole room knew it was I with the van and the claims against King. It was as if they resented the fact that their behavior against King as a child helped him make the monster that he is, and felt as if I was exposing all of them too. It was quite a scene. The unspoken exchange of feelings against the tension so thick that you could cut it over my hammy. The tension of mass resentment of the truth hero, me. I recall how certain teachers at the University of Maine orchestrated a mass of students to usher me away from his speaking area. My last visit there, I was amazed how mind-controlled they were. I swear, someday they'll call it Bangor Syndrome. Steve Lightfoot is a man as absurd as he is obscure. Just in the making of this video, I could only find a handful of news articles and a YouTube video about him. Most of the information I could find about him came from his own website, LennonMurderTruth.com, a website that acts as a sort of pseudo-journal for the man, giving updates on his life and his never-ending crusade against Stephen King. Legend has it Steve and his van are still out there, roaming the country, and spreading his truth.